All right, few questions. I know, let's get it out the way. How many of you have a podcast? Raise them high, raise them proud. That's what you're here for. How many of you are producers? Okay, I see. Y'all the lifeline of the podcast. We know what's real. We know what's up. We know what's up. Now, how many people just came in because they thought my title was pretty cool? You can tell me. It's a Saturday now. Y'all showed up for me. I got to bring the energy, so I'm very appreciative. Let's talk about how to transform your podcast to a brand amplifier and a growth accelerator. All right, let me just bring it on down. There's 3 things you need to think about when you're trying to do this. You need an effective strategy. You need really good marketing. And you need to position your podcast for success. Too many times people, they have something to say, but they're not speaking to the right people. They're not promoting themselves. It feels like, am I a narcissist for you're talking to yourself? You know, I mean, you're good. People want to hear and know what you're trying to say. So I know you've all heard a lot of stages, a lot of presentations. I'm just going to keep it real. Growth is not easy. You're here. I'm not going to give you a magic saying, a magic sentence that's going to transform your podcast to 10,000 downloads a month, 100,000 downloads a year. That's not what I do. But I do know about concepts and strategies that can help you grow your podcast to whatever you want it to become. So a lot of things that people deal with growing their podcast, y'all know podcast is a whole lifestyle. It's a whole change for you, your family, your whole thing. You're tired, you're not enough time. Maybe you don't have enough capital to promote it. Maybe you don't have enough money to get a team or a really good producer or do the marketing and the ads. And you're looking at your downloads and you're like, I'm not motivated. I don't see enough people. Trust me, you are not alone. Wherever you are in your podcast space, wherever you are sitting in your seat right now, coming here, you are not alone on how you feel. We all have goals and aspirations where we want to go. Just don't let that stop you. Because growth is possible. Anything is possible. Who's a Boston fan up in here? Lakers fans? I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Growth is possible. But one thing you got to think about is you got to stop being perfectionists. You got to take action. My intention, if you leave from anything from this presentation, is that you go out and take action. Because nothing can manifest itself if you don't do. It will never be perfect for yourself and for anybody else. I had someone tell me this, and I'll move on in a second. They told me, how dare you withhold your voice and your information that could transform somebody else's life? How selfish are you for not taking action because one troll told you your podcast wasn't good? Because the vision that you had for the concept didn't make sense to someone who maybe has 100 episodes in already. That's one person. How many people are there on the planet? How many? Right, exactly. So make sure that you get out of your perfection and start taking action. Because progress is impossible without change. There's a catalyst, there's a transformation process. You don't just start off as a butterfly, you start as a caterpillar. And you gotta change, you gotta transform into what you wanna be, into what you wanna become. And it's awkward, it's uncomfortable, but guess what? You are not the only one, you ain't been the first one, you will not be the last one. And when you transform, other people are gonna be inspired by your transformation. So a little bit about me, let's get this out the way. Imposter syndrome is kicking in, so let's move it really quickly. I am known as the strategy hacker. I'm the author of a new book called Strategize Up. My podcast is called I Digress. I live on Twitter, y'all, so if y'all can do me a favor, take a picture of me and tag Fine Troy so my wife can see my swagger. She dressed me, y'all. So I got to represent and make sure that, hey, I did wear what you told me to wear. And I'm really big on social media, on social audio platforms as well. But about my podcast, though, this is what y'all really came for the tea. Like, is he all smoke and mirrors? Like, how did he get up here? Like, why are you talking right now? Well, I chose the hardest possible route of a podcaster. I'm a solo hosted. I don't do any guests. So it's just me, myself, and I. It's really weird. And I talk about marketing, strategy, growth, and business. My podcast, no matter what, is always under 30 minutes, no matter what. So if you're a person who likes to talk and you got to edit down, it gets really hard. And I'm high energy, constant voice fluctuation, so bear with me. I change and shift all the time to keep your attention, so I may yell, I may get soft. We won't be okay together. But I must admit, my ads are pretty lit. Like, if anything else, you're going to know that my ads are really, really lit. I'm really proud of that. So from humble beginnings, how many of you are a pandemic baby podcaster? I must admit, I will wear it proudly that I am one, but I stuck through it. I started my podcast on September 28th, 2020, and I had 3 downloads. but I didn't let it stop me, right? That's what people just transition into. That's not me. So I only had 3 downloads when I started. 3 months, 11 episodes in, 545 downloads. That's it. That's all I had. Now for me, I'm like, okay, Troy, you're 11 episodes in, no one's really listening. Why are you still doing this? Well, for me, I always said when I started this podcast, I was not trying to be a podcaster. I knew the potentiality how a podcast can help me with search and SEO. You put in the directories, people search your name, oh, look, a podcast come up. Oh, my episodes, I talk about this stuff all day long. If I can use one episode and submit it to someone just saying, hey, this can help your business, call me when you want to talk, I just converted my podcast into a sales tool. So sometimes people think about downloads, they think about ads and revenue that way. Well, if I create the content and that content makes me money for clients or customers, the podcast still makes me money. Now, sure, it's not glamorous. Nobody knows about it, but I do. My wife does. My bank account does. And so that's all that matters. So you have to understand, how do you position your podcast to work for you? So one thing you really got to think about is how to apply your growth mindset for your podcast. Yvette did a phenomenal job talking about your mindset earlier today. My thing is, you got to know the right metrics. And I ain't talking about downloads. I'm talking about the metrics that matter for you. That may be, how did you feel about that episode? Do like a Q&A for you with yourself. Did you feel confident? Did you feel the way you envision in your mind you sound? I don't know how many of you, when you started your podcast, does my voice really sound like that? Do you ever get over that? Okay, it's not me. Okay, cool. I just wasn't sure. I'm like, I don't know, maybe I'm the only one left on the planet who can't get used to their own voice. But know the metrics that matter to your podcast, your business, your vision, and that's going to be different than everybody else in the room. There's more metrics to understand that's going to tell you the success of your podcast than just how many people downloaded on that day. Do you know how many things in the world can impact someone's IQ to look at your thing and like, not today? That doesn't mean you're a failure. It just wasn't that day. They could be listening to it the next week, and it still counts. So let's not just die by the death of downloads. Be broader of your metrics. Know your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. When I started the podcast, I didn't have the financial ability to do guests. I was clear about that. And I've had people, when I said I started a podcast, you're going to do a solo host experience? You don't want me on? And it was that peer pressure. But I knew I did not have the financial structure yet, and I didn't have the technical know-how yet to interview people. And I'm a really good interviewer, I admit that. But I didn't have the know-how to make it work for a podcast. It's a whole different experience, a whole different ballgame, and I respect anyone who does it that way. So I chose to create an experience that would set me up for success. Not looking at what everybody else is doing, not looking at what the top person in my industry, in my podcast space is doing. What is going to make me be consistent with my delivery, with my flow, and no matter what happens, I'm happy about it because it came from me. And lastly, trust the process. Accept the flow. You got to be consistent. So let me tell you a little bit about Clover. And it's going to be really funny if you all, after this episode, like, Clover this, Clover that. I'm really big on acronyms and mnemonics, so bear with me. You must be clear about your goals and your why. We already talked about that. But I also want to talk about you have to leverage your time and resources wisely. It's the impression, I heard this from another speaker's stage session, that podcasting is a full-time job. People still think in 2022 that a podcast is, oh, I can do it in a 1-hour-a-week thing and get all these downloads, get ads, I'm good, revenue, blah, blah, blah. No, it's a full-time commitment. And so you have to leverage your time and resources wisely. And then never stop optimizing your process. I think when you think in a state where you're optimizing always of your podcast, you're never going to think up to a place where you have arrived. Not that you're not content. There's a difference. You're just acknowledging and recognizing that there's always things that I can modify because this success will not be forever, or maybe this lack of growth or abundance may not be forever. It's going to always shift. There's always dips and lows. So you're always in a state of optimization. And then you want to manifest your vision and exchange value. How many people heard during this time, give value on your podcast. Always give value, right? Are you getting value back, though? The reason why people don't get past episode 7, they're burnt out. They're not getting enough value back. And if they're associating their value only with the number of downloads as the equation of their success level, that's a really bad situation to be in. So make sure that when you're creating the experience that you want, that you're receiving something back, that joy, to make sure that you're going back with it. Then you got to execute, baby. It means nothing if you come here, you've been here all these days, and then you don't do something. You gotta take action. Well, I've been to all these conferences. I took all my notes. That you're not gonna check no more. Now I did all this stuff. That you ain't gonna click on the link no more. You're gonna forget about everything. I was connected to that person on LinkedIn. I didn't do it. I was too afraid. They're not approachable. No. Take action. You must execute. And lastly, results matter. They matter all the time. And if you're not recognizing that the changes in flow, it won't help you. Again, clarity is essential to know what moves you need to make. You must leverage everything available to you for you to be successful. Everything to you. I leveraged my wife's time. I said, hey, I'm gonna need 2 hours where you give me a minute so I can really be in this zone. And I understood that this is a communications conversation, but I had to invite my community to see, I'm trying to build this vision. And the better you leverage other people to help you create that vision, the better it's for your podcast to be successful. Nothing works perfectly. We all know that. So therefore, optimization is essential to make adjustments accordingly to keep you on track toward your goals. What's your goal for this month? That's not a download. What's your goal for the next three months? What's your goal for the year? What's something that you think is a crazy, audacious goal that will never happen for your podcast? I'm going to get to that for mine in a minute. But just think about that. You're always going to be optimizing. And again, I've already talked about this, but people ask me, what's the difference between clarity, being clear about your goals, and creating the vision? Clear is writing the list down. Vision is seeing it and manifesting what it is. What does it feel like to be at the top of your game for your podcast? How do you want people who listen to your podcast feel at the end of every episode? I don't want them to just download and be out 2 minutes later. Well, look, I got all these downloads. I want people to go 80% of the way, hopefully 100% of the way, and hopefully you mention me and tag me and tell me, that episode was great, or even if it wasn't great, tell me what didn't land. Because this is a conversation. Yes, you may be your own experience, but when they react and interact with it, it's a two-way conversation. So make sure you're doing that, but also making sure that you're receiving value from, it's a lot of work. So make sure you're receiving enough value back. And success can exist unless you execute. Now, what would it look like if I did all this? I flew up here, it took me an hour and a half to get from LAX to here, did all this stuff, did all this prep work, and I didn't get on this stage and execute. It was worth nothing, because guess what? No one saw me do it. What good is all your ideas in your head, all these notes, all these recordings that you never posted, that you never put together, because it ain't right. I slurred, I said too many ums, I sound weird. It won't matter if you don't push publish and let the world be the judge. And lastly, again, results matter. Your return on investment, your return on impact, your revenue, your attention, and your respect. Your respect for yourself to just finish strong. So a small taste of virality. December 6, 2029, I mentioned earlier in the presentation, my first 3 months, 11 episodes in, I had 545 downloads. First episode, like 3 downloads the first day. So December, I started to see some traction, baby. Woo! I got excited. I saw a comma. I said, I'm in the comma club now. You can't tell me nothing now. Woo! I sent to my mom the screenshot. She didn't understand nothing about it at the time. I was like, Mama, let me tell you, I am a validated podcaster now. I got the comma. And honestly, that episode I didn't even like. So I saw a little bit, 604-1440. I was happy dancing, then it kind of, oh man, I'm a failure again. I can never get to that same level of success again. Who am I? I'm a fraud. Imposter syndrome all over, right? So, well, I kept going a little bit, and I struck gold. I was like, okay, I got the comma again, but look at my numbers now. We peaking, we getting those higher charts on there. So I was like, okay, I was telling my wife, because she still didn't understand at the time, I was like, okay, I'm starting to see something happening, something moving. I don't know what it is. Is it my delivery? Is it my consistency? I couldn't tell you at the time. But I said, well, let me keep going. So the next thing to think about when we're really trying to get to that place of growth is DART. Be direct with who you're trying to reach. Be authentic in who you are. Let me be clear. Let me be very, very clear. I am a black man, as you can tell. And I'm a person who speaks on marketing strategy and growth. And at the time when I started my career, I didn't hear enough people who sounded like me talking the things that I need to know so I could be better at my job. I had to learn the jargon. I had to learn and be comfortable with being uncomfortable in rooms that I don't fit in to make that work. And so when you put your podcast, when you're clear about your vision of, it doesn't matter, it's not about me. It's about how can I help a person who's listening to be impactful. And so my niche was really focusing on that. And so I had to be very direct and I had to be very authentic about myself. I said, this is going to be the one moment where I'm not going to code switch or nothing. I'm about to be the most unapologetically black version of myself within reason that I can be on an audio experience so they can feel that and still talk about marketing strategy growth in a hoodie and some shoes and say, yeah, I can look like this and help you grow your business too, right? Am I right? And then be resourceful with your how and be tactical with your movements. I didn't have any money. I didn't want to admit that, but I didn't have money to pay for ads. So people say, well, why don't you do ads? I can't. I have no money. But I can leverage my community to give me access to be on guest podcasts, to have conversations, to network, find other ways to get that result. Just because I can't take that route out of this hall, I can still find my way out of here. And so you have to think about that with your own podcast. And to go a little bit deeper, y'all can take your screenshots. I'm not going to talk about all this stuff. But, be direct in your communication, as in ask and challenge. Tell the stories. Tell the truth. But you got to make it simple. You got to make it clear. Be authentic in your message. Be relatable. Sometimes I love when people get on stage or on the podcast, they're like, I don't know what I'm going to talk about. And this is that awkward silence, like, oh, say something. And you're just like, I relate to that, though. Keep going, keep going. Be relatable, be resourceful, and then be tactical. So I already talked about this already. My mission for my podcast, bringing more diversity to the business podcast space, make growth strategies simple for everyone. I identified that a lot of businesses, they don't know how to market. They don't know how to sell. They didn't go to school for that. They didn't study all day long. I'm on Twitter scrolling, what's marketing doing, what's this doing? I'm like, it's the NASDAQ or something. They don't have that passion, but they do have a passion for their business, whether they're creating a product, creating a service, and they need someone to help them learn how to market, make it simple so they can grow. And so that was my initial audience, but it still works for Fortune 500 brands, still works for enterprise brands, all the things. I had to also realize that there's space for me. If I didn't see the space, I'm going to make the space. Do you realize that a podcast audio experience allows you to not, I was the most free I've ever felt when I started my podcast. They didn't know I was black, at least not in the first 2 minutes. They didn't know all these things, all the biases that I had to deal with to just get access, to get attention, to get someone to hear me the way I need to be presented. What's your title? How big is your following? Click and just listen. And you're going to see the world the way I get to see the world. And that's so powerful. I commend you for doing that because you're taking your story and making it a visual representation. Another thing I like to talk about is PAM, to boost your social buzz, reach, and opportunities. Position, amplify, and magnify while being magnetic. You have to extend everything for people can see it, but you got to attract people too. And it's a dance. It's a work in progress. You're always optimizing and making these changes, but you also got to be comfortable with amplifying your message. I talk really fast. I admit that. I'm scatterbrained. That's why it's called I Digress. For those who didn't know, why is it called I Digress? I always would talk about something. Oh, wait, how did I get over here? But I digress and come right back to where I started. So it's just understanding what your strengths and weaknesses and opportunities and threats are, but make it work for you. I'm a quirky dude. I'm a nerd. I like Star Wars and Star Trek. I choose Star Wars more, but we're not going to talk about that. Are any Marvel fans in here? Okay, cool, bet. But then just think about, positioning is so simple. We can get started with labels and tags, and it's just, what do you want to do? Understand that these tags are not you. I know I fit different audiences, different demographics. There may be seasons where I'm fitting into this lane more, and seasons where I'm fitting in a different lane more. They're both you. So don't get too stuck up with the tags. Conviction plus commitment plus consistency plus confidence creates opportunities. Are you convinced and convicted with your message that if I said, here's the mic, tell me what your podcast is about, that you could do it? No hesitation. Boom, what is it about? Why are you trying to do this? Are you committed to your craft? Whether it's one episode a week, a month, a year. As far as I'm concerned, you did something. You committed. Consistency and confidence creates opportunities. Y'all might think because I'm up here with my kicks on, my hoodie, and my thing, I'm on stage, that I'm not just nervous. It's not that I'm not nervous. My message and my why goes beyond the feeling how I feel. And so many times when you're at the podcast, you're going to create the episode and everything else out, go beyond how you feel. Because the truth that you have to spit out in the world is bigger than you. So I got to join the big leads. Shout out to my HubSpot people. I love y'all. In June 20th, 2021, I got on and I was like, I don't have enough downloads. I don't got enough stuff going on. Like, what am I going to do? And I just said, well, I'm different. I speak to people in a different way, in a different community that you need. And lo and behold, they brought me on. I was like, yeah, I made it. I was so happy. And then that's when I realized I built the community first. Now it's time to get serious. Now it's time to scale. They let me into the Avengers. I better start winning. I better start getting these downloads up. So yeah, I was having a big moment. I was really big about that. I felt like I was in the Avengers, the podcast warriors over here. So the 5 C's to generate growth: consideration, communication, connection, consistency, and community. But I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about paths. Most times people don't know how to articulate their story in a way that's going to connect with multiple people. And so instead of telling people, I'm just presenting, like I'm doing. I'm presenting my thoughts. You get to interpret and take away what you feel. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm presenting findings and thoughts for you to articulate your own thoughts, just like how you're reading your own book. You get to interpret your own way the characters and the story needs to go. Ask questions. If you don't know what to say, ask somebody else what you want to hear. How can I help you? Put it out there in the social media world, and people are going to tweet and tell you, I don't know how to do this. Okay, there's my next episode right there. No point in me Googling for days on how to figure this out. I'm going to ask questions. Share with others what others are saying, and you got to sway. You got to sway with your content. You really got to sway, for real. How about, hey, sway with me. Anybody want to sway with me a little bit? Lean to the left, lean to the right, There you go. You got to sway with your content. You got to let it go and not be so constructive of, this is always the way I've done my podcast. If you're a person who's listened to the last 20 episodes, I've hit all my listeners with different stuff every time. I'm like, I'm about to catch y'all off guard. I've interrupted my own ad to drop a nugget. So, hey, I'm all about disruption. So, we're getting closer to the finish line. I stopped focusing on daily growth, and I put all my time in developing my process, my system, my identity, and my approach. And then the numbers starting to really take off. It really started to shine and make it. And I wanted to share this on my presentation because, sometimes people don't show the back end. They don't show the real stuff. And I'm pretty transparent. There's no problem with me sharing what it is. Because it was hard, it was challenging. And even when I was putting this presentation together, this is the first time I ever looked at the numbers from when I started, September 28th, 2020, to now. So my last thing, I saved the best for last, y'all. I promise I did. Y'all ain't ready for this. This is how you grow your business. This is how you grow your podcast right here. You got to leverage language to launch. People, I say this all the time. And this is why I started my podcast in the first place. People are talking to me, and they're saying, this episode, this person is going to change your business. It's going to change your life. I don't understand what he's saying. So how in the world am I supposed to amplify that and use that if I can't understand the language? What good is if I'm speaking in French and you don't know how to speak French? But what I'm telling you is the truth, but I don't understand it. So you have to leverage language that makes sense to the audience you're trying to attract. That's one of the biggest problems podcasters are facing. They're talking their language, but they're not making it make sense for them. Then you want to educate and entertain to enchant. It's not enough to just talk, here's what else have I learned, if you're not entertaining. I got to keep your attention. And through those two combination of things, I'm going to get you to your heart. When I get to your heart, you're going to give me a review. You're going to give me that like. You'll give me that dopamine hit of metrics that, yeah. Or you're going to tell somebody else and give me access to big podcast movement. So thank y'all. Then you got to attract and amplify to activate. I want to attract the right people. I want to empower them so they can amplify a message that's bigger than me. It's not about my podcast. If I didn't get nothing else, no more reviews, and someone said by the end of the year, Troy, I listened to your episodes, and I was able to start my business, that is the greatest amplifier for me that I ever heard. I'm like, let's go. I'm pumped. Let's go a whole nother year with 0 downloads and just keep going and making episodes. Dream big and distinguish yourself to drive and share frequently and support often to shine. You cannot win alone. I know I'm an only podcast. I know it feels weird. But you are not at this alone. You got to equip to help other people for you. So 3.0 here. So from September 20th, 2020 to the last day of Black History Month, I hit over $200,000. That might not be a much for a lot of folk, but for little old me in the corner, I remember when I started, how many mics I went through, how many things I went through to get to that number. You can't tell me nothing no more. I got a little kick in my step. I collaborated with FedEx, Agora Pulse, and Ahrefs just by my podcast. I didn't do nothing. They reached out to me. Obviously, I'm the HubSpot Podcast Network, so I'm always representing over there. I'm getting more confident, and I think about it this way. Because of all this consistency, I've been able to find my voice, retool myself, and get better at my craft. There's so many things that go into podcasting that we don't even realize, and so embrace it. So, if there are any questions, I got some time left on the clock. Let's get it going. Thank you so much.
Can you please say a little bit about what it was like to get picked up by a network, just in terms of what that experience was like, how it went down, what it was that you were up to that attracted them to you, and how it amplified your podcast, or just what that experience was like of that shift?
It was nerve-wracking, right? The imposter syndrome was so strong, I was like, I ain't gonna do it, but I did it. So I saw a tweet that HubSpot went out about, we're looking for more podcasts to be on the network. And I'm looking at the people who are already on the network. I'm like, my downloads don't look like that. I don't got enough episodes like that. I don't know about that. But I realized what I had. I had diversification. I didn't see enough people looking like me on there. And I said, well, hey, that's my advantage. That's my niche to get in the door. How do I make this work for them? So I said, I bet you if you brought me in and you teach me how to be better at my podcast craft, I'm going to bring more people in the community who actually need your tool to join and listen to. And it's just a gap problem. They don't understand because they don't have someone speaking their language to bring them into the fold. Once in the fold and they get in the groove of it, then they're all going to explore and learn, and you're missing out on different demographics. And so that was my way in, and I presented it that way, and I hit submit, and I closed my eyes. I told my wife, I said, I don't know what's going to happen next. And then I got the email. I said, wait a minute, there's a chance. And it just changed, but also, really quick, even after the fact, to this point, I made the podcast a hobby. And I had to reset my mind to think of it like a second job. A job that's gonna be very impactful, but a second job nonetheless, because I didn't want to get it on there and they'd be like, bro, you ain't it. We're gonna get you out. I'm like, I didn't come too far now. I gotta go full-fledged in. Thank you for the question. I got one or two more questions in here. What was it about the first episode I think I didn't like the episode. It was actually, I think one of the first episodes where I talked less about marketing and growth, and I got really vulnerable. And it was so different, but I was like, it's my podcast. I do what I want. So at the time, I really didn't like the episode because I just felt kind of whiny and kind of whatever. And I think also timing mattered too. I think both was played a part into me getting that first comma. One more question, and I'm out.
I don't know if this counts as a question, and I'm super awkward for asking it. Are you doing anything after this? Can I buy you a coffee? I have questions.
I do, yes, let's do it.
Thank you so much.
Thank y'all for your time.